Hello. Welcome to case presentation number 3. My name is Brenda Bryant, and I'm a student here at Sacred Heart University, and this is my presentation for Social Work 585, the Assessment of Client Systems. This case is based off of the 2017 movie, First They Killed My Father. Set during the 1975 communist Khmer Rouge regime, it tells the story of the Ung family, and in particular of Lao Ung, the 7-year-old daughter who was trained as a child soldier. Ultimately, I chose to examine the journey of the 4 surviving members of the Ung family. My focus as a social worker will be on to maintain the integrity of the family unit, assess both their individual and family needs, and to help them reconnect to their cultural identity. The Ungs are a Cambodian family that included Ma and Pa Ung and their 7 children. They were a very close-knit family who had a strong connection to their Buddhist faith. The family lived in an apartment in the city and were considered to be middle class. When the revolution began, the family was forced out of their home and to be placed in a work camp. Pa Ung had actually worked for the government and was quite fearful of this discovery and being punished by the Khmer Rouge. The family was forced to work in a work camp where they were indoctrinated with daily propaganda from the Khmer Rouge. Once arriving at the camp, the family was split, and the 3 eldest children were sent to combat. Pa Ung was taken for re-education, which essentially meant that he was to be executed. The oldest daughter was injured in combat and died a short time later. Tim, Long, and Chow were sent away from the family to avoid the same fate, but were unable to stay together, and Chow was never seen again. Before surviving siblings reunited at a Vietnamese refugee camp, the children were forced into labor training and combat and bore witness to the traumas of war. The surviving Ung siblings ultimately reunited at a refugee camp, and the family structure and loyalties that were ingrained into the children prior to the conflict are quite evident as they observed interacting with each other. Upon arrival to the camp, the 4 siblings were faced with a multitude of pressing concerns, including malnourishment and poor health. And the Ung siblings have collectively expressed a very deep affection and reverence for their deceased family members. In the Cambodian culture, there's a strong need to put one's family to rest, similar to sort of our tradition of a Catholic funeral where we lay somebody to rest. It's believed that the actions in one's life may impede a deceased person's ability to rest in the afterlife. And typically, surviving family members work to make amends or accumulate merits for their deceased family members so that they may find peace in the afterlife. So this may be really an important source of mourning and healing for the family. Additionally, all of the Ung siblings are exhibiting symptoms of PTSD, including hypersensitivity, anxiety, and kind of what appears to be a numbing to their surroundings. But I do want to make note that the Cambodian culture is one of piety or reverence, with particular respect to authority figures and parents. So, these are some important factors that I would need to take into account and really kind of understand the behavioral intricacies and the working knowledge of cultural norms within the Cambodian culture before I, take all of these things into effect. The Ung siblings are facing a multitude of risk factors, including their dislocation from their homes, their communities, their family, and their friends. They've experienced a lack of nutrition, a lack of health care, and haven't had any health care in years. Their exposure to war and violence has no doubt imprinted unimaginable atrocities into their lives and into their psyches. They've lost over half of their family and countless extended family members, and they have yet to be able to put those families properly to rest. They've experienced torture, starvation, they've witnessed mass genocide, and their spirituality has truly been challenged through the loss of their community. The disruption in their physical space and peer groups has destroyed any semblance of structured education, particularly for the younger Ung members, and normal development. Now I understand as we look at this list of protective factors, it looks so small in comparison to the previous list, but there are some really important distinctions here. Culturally speaking, the impact of strong family relationships is perhaps one of the most important and critical protective factors in the Cambodian culture. In fact, much of my proposed assessment really relies on keeping the surviving family members together, knowing how crucial it is to their healing. Additionally, their spiritual beliefs include the concept of karma and the belief that if they did good deeds, it would keep me alive. And this has been proven to be a very powerful factor in the resilience of many Cambodian survivors. In order to accurately assess the Ung siblings, a biopsychosocial should be completed with a detailed attention given to cultural impacts and should include a genogram that will include spiritual and family connections. Additionally, a close relationship with the United Nations Border Relief Organization will help to arrange healthcare, nutritional, and educational needs. Now, we are going to want to take a look at assessing the children's exposure to trauma and potential PTSD. The use of the Child War Questionnaire, and in particular, the post-traumatic stress symptoms in children will be helpful with this assessment. The PTSSC is particularly of importance because it is specifically designed to work with children of Eastern cultures and is available in Khmer, which is the official language of Cambodia. And finally, I want to stress the importance of having a translator. Studies have indicated that, particularly for Cambodian survivors, there are three main dilemmas for treatment, the first of which is communication, followed by information and attitudes. So really, knowledge of the Cambodian culture and the ability to communicate will be central to any treatment that's provided for the siblings. I've spoken in great lengths to the importance of cultural knowledge and importance in the lives of the Ung family. These factors are, in fact, one of the most important components to my work with the family, as it's been proven to be one of the most essential predictors of resilience, particularly among survivors of the Cambodian conflict. And as a social worker, it will be my responsibility to understand and acknowledge, the impact of their Buddhist culture, the reality of language barriers, their traditionals and rituals regarding death, their family traditions, and what are cultural norms for social interaction. And as a social worker, ethically, I am bound to acknowledge my own cultural bias and to look and understand how that may impact the work that I do, and really kind of take a long, hard look at my own process of cultural humility. I acknowledge that this would be a very difficult assessment. As a social worker, I know that my bias, my horror, and my feelings of helplessness would undoubtedly impact the work that I do. I also know that my compassion would propel me not to give up, to continue to ask questions, and to find ways to keep this family together. As an American social worker, I also recognize that I've never and probably will never know what this family has been through. And I recognize that I may not have all the information from their point of view, as things tend to get lost in translation. Again, finding a trusted translator or somebody who can help bridge the language barrier will be essential. And finally, being a human being sharing this world space with this family, it's incomprehensible to me how people can live through such horrors and still survive, and yet millions of people do. I think this may be one of the most difficult components of this case, and I know this is something that I will need reflection, supervision, and a lot of thought in order to come to terms with. As a side note, if anybody's interested in kind of deep diving a bit further into the resilience of the Cambodian culture, in particular in regards to the war that this movie really focused on, I referenced the book by Jay Overland called The Post-Traumatic Survival, The Lessons of Cambodian Resilience. The focus of the book was really on resilience and culture, and it's definitely worth a second glance if you are so inclined. And you can find that info on the next slide. So as promised, here is the references, and I just want to thank you for your time and look forward to hearing your work. Be well and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.